Another big update on NEWEY as announcement date has been revealed. Oscar doesn't have any interest in helping LANDO for the championship and more FLEXI wing drama as Red Bull and Ferrari seek answers. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Now let's get straight into the latest F1 news. Oscar Piastri has no interest in Lando Norris winning the world title, nor will it excite him if his teammate achieves the feat. But that doesn't mean he won't help out if called upon. But doing anything but help at the Italian Grand Prix, Martin Brundle admits he admires the Aussie's killer instinct attitude. Piastri lined up on the Monza grid in second place, having missed out on pole position by 1/10 of a second to his teammate Norris. But it was the Hungarian Grand Prix winner who was leading at the end of lap 1. Although Norris made a good start off the line to lead the way through the first chicane, McLaren's papaya rules in play as the teammates kept it clean, Piastri attacked into the second chicane and not only took the lead but compromised Norris enough that Charles Leclerc also snuck through. Racing first and second for much of the Grand Prix, Norris was told he could race his teammate for the lead, but to remember those papaya rules. But with Ferrari adopting a one-stop strategy for Leclerc, it was the Scuderia who claimed the race win ahead of a McLaren 2-3 headed by Piastri. For Brundle, it was perfect team play off the line, right up until the moment it wasn't. However, the former F1 driver turned pundit says he admires Piastri's killer instinct, even if it cost Norris 3 points in his fight against Max Verstappen. This looked like perfect team play from the two McLaren boys covering all the road and exiting the danger zone comfortably first and second. But that didn't last long, he wrote in his Sky F1 column. Norris was cautious on the brakes into the second chicane, and Piastri sliced down the outside of him. Norris quickly released the brakes, but Piastri stuck with it around the outside and claimed the lead as they almost touched. Norris slid a little sideways, which gave him a slow exit, and Charles Leclerc wasted no time right up against the grass to seize second place going towards the first Lesmo corner. Piastri clearly has no interest in Norris's world championship chances against Max Verstappen, which we'd already witnessed in Hungary when he firmly seized the lead in the first corner. The racer in me admires this attitude. That's why Piastri won championships and ended up in a race-winning F1 car. The last thing which will excite him is Norris becoming world champion in the same car. That doesn't mean he won't help out at some point, and indeed that he hasn't helped out here and there already, but that racer's mentality and killer instinct is all important. I remember saying in commentary in Hungary, if the roles had been reversed, would Piastri have handed Norris the lead back, and I really don't know the answer. I do know that many ruthless and selfish world champions I've raced against wouldn't have. Norris is 62 points behind Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, added Brundle. That could have been 52 if McLaren had insisted Piastri yielded recently. They didn't want to do that, and they feel Norris doesn't necessarily want to win a championship by having a compliant wingman, but it will be interesting to see what happens next if they really want to apply pressure to Red Bull and Max. The FIA has issued a statement clarifying its position on the level of front wing flexing currently under observation through a recent technical directive. The level of flexibility of the front wing of some of F1's leading cars has drawn attention in recent weeks, with the FIA seeking to observe how much flexing is going on via a technical directive brought in at the Belgian Grand Prix. Since Belgium, TD034G has allowed the FIA to closely monitor the level of front wing flexibility currently occurring by way of ultra-high-resolution cameras and tracking dots. While all the teams have passed all current checks and load tests, some of the leading teams are understood to be unhappy with the level of flexibility on display at McLaren and Mercedes, with Ferrari, Red Bull, and Williams voicing their concerns to the FIA. Ferrari team boss Fred Vasseur is understood to be discussing the matter with FIA single-seater director Nicolas Tombazis on Tuesday, while Red Bull boss Christian Horner has said his team are ready to respond with a revised front wing if there are no issues running with higher levels of flex. A statement issued by the FIA on Tuesday clarified the governing body's position after the initial monitoring period of a few weeks. The FIA is examining front wings at every event with numerous checks. Conformity of surfaces, conformity of deflections, with respect to the relevant F1 technical regulation, read the statement. All front wings are currently compliant with the 2024 regulations. Since the Belgium Grand Prix, the FIA has acquired additional data during FP1 and FP2 sessions to assess dynamic behaviors through an FIA-mandated video camera, which captures areas of the front wing that are not visible through the official FOM cameras. This exercise will continue at least up until Singapore to ensure every team will have been running the mandated FIA camera on different types of tracks: low, medium, high, and very high downforce. This will ensure a large database allowing the FIA to draw the most objective picture of the situation and quantify differences between the various dynamic patterns observed on track. The governing body also explained that the current static load tests, which check the levels of flexibility, might need to be tweaked for 2025, and admitted monitoring the front wings in a uniform fashion has been a challenge. No component is infinitely stiff, which is the reason why there are load deflection tests in the regulations, the statement continued. The front wing has been a challenging area throughout the years because the aerodynamic loading patterns between different competitors varies, and it is therefore difficult to find a load vector which will cover all types of front wing construction. Other areas of the car, including rear wing and floor edges, have much more consistent aerodynamic loading patterns across the grid, making for a more universal load deflection test. The FIA has the right to introduce new tests if irregularities are suspected. There are no plans for any short-term measures, but we are evaluating the situation with the medium and long-term in mind. Following the Italian Grand Prix weekend, the voices calling for closer examination of front-wing flex have only grown louder, as Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko told Austria's ORF. The front wing of McLaren and Mercedes must be analyzed, he said. Vasseur confirmed his intention to discuss the issue with Tombazis, saying, "This is a discussion that I don't want to have with you." Laughs. "I will have it with Tombazis. But we have to respect the decision of the FIA that we'll have again the discussion." As for Horner, the Red Bull team boss said there can be ambiguity over a component's exploitation of the wording of a regulation, even if a test is passed. "I think the regulations are very clear, and I think that's an FIA issue," he told media, including Planet F1, after the Italian GP. "So obviously there are tests that they passed, but then you'd have to look at the wording of the regulations. I mean, we got, if you remember back in 21, certainly around Baku time, there was a change to the front wing regulation. Even though our wings passed the test, it was exploiting air elasticity. So that's an FIA issue, so we'll leave it and trust in them to deal with it." Adrian Newey is poised to complete his move from Red Bull to Aston Martin this week. PlanetF1.com understands, with the F1 design legend expected to sign a contract in the coming days. The news comes after Newey's manager Eddie Jordan confirmed that an arrangement with Red Bull has delayed an announcement on his client's future until September 6th at the earliest. Aston Martin have been heavily linked with a move for Newey since the legendary designer announced in May that he will leave Red Bull in early 2025, having masterminded the team's astronomical success with the likes of Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen. The 65-year-old stands as the most decorated individual in F1 history, having secured more than 200 race wins, as well as 12 Constructors and 13 Drivers' World Championships for the likes of Red Bull, McLaren, and Williams. Having reportedly been treated to a secret tour of the team's new state-of-the-art factory this summer, widespread rumors last month claim Newey has decided to join Aston Martin on a 3-year deal worth $100 million. Under the terms of his Red Bull exit, negotiated by former F1 team owner Jordan, Newey will be permitted to start work with his new team in 2025, crucially sidestepping the period of gardening leave commonplace in Formula One staff contracts, to play an influential role in car design ahead of the major F1 2026 rule changes. Rumors over recent months have indicated that Newey has been prevented from announcing his next move until September 6th, under the conditions of his Red Bull departure. Jordan appeared to confirm the claims during an appearance on the Formula for Success podcast last month, revealing an agreement is in place with Red Bull over the releasing of any future ideas that we may be doing. He stressed that the arrangement will be adhered to and respected 100%. With last Sunday's Italian Grand Prix marking the start of September, efforts to finalize Newey's move to Aston Martin are likely to step up this week with an announcement expected ahead of next weekend's Azerbaijan GP in Baku. Appearing on Sky F1's coverage at Monza, commentator David Croft also teased that Newey's future is likely to be resolved in the coming days. He said, "There's a lot going on behind the scenes at Aston Martin. not just with the new campus, but with new staff coming in as well. I think we might hear something about Adrian Newey's future this week. He's been linked heavily with Aston Martin. The signing of Newey would represent a major coup for Aston Martin team owner Lawrence Stroll, who has made no secret of his ambition to turn the former Jordan Grand Prix and Force India outfit into a title-winning force. Newey's arrival will follow the hires of Ferrari technical director Enrico Cardile and former Mercedes engine guru Andy Cowell, with Aston Martin set to commence a works partnership Honda, the current engine suppliers of Red Bull, in F1 2026. Croft believes Mr. Stroll deserves credit for putting his money where his mouth is in his efforts to build Aston Martin into a leading team. He added, "Give Lawrence Stroll his due. He has said from the outset, I'm going to take this team, I'm going to turn them into a championship contender, and we will win championships eventually." He has very much put his money where his mouth is over the last few years. And celebrity F1 fan and Newey's former schoolmate Jeremy Clarkson says Adrian Newey is house hunting in Oxfordshire, so who knows what might happen this week. Liam Lawson was behind the wheel of a Red Bull RB20 for a day's testing action at Monza on Tuesday, as 4 teams complete some 2025 preparation work. 3 F1 teams are carrying out some extra testing on behalf of Pirelli this week, with Mercedes, Red Bull, and VCarb performing the duties on this occasion. As part of Pirelli's testing program for its 2025 tire compounds and constructions, all the teams are given an opportunity to take part in one of several scheduled tests throughout the season. The latest such tests are being conducted in Italy this week, with 3 teams staying on at Monza for 2 days of track action, following the Italian Grand Prix. Mercedes and Red Bull are performing the duties on behalf of Pirelli, with the 2 teams logging the laps and putting in the miles. The tests do not allow for any development or setup work, with the cars running in previously used configurations and only using whichever tires are laid out for them at any given moment by the tire manufacturer. Liam Lawson was behind the wheel of the Red Bull RB20, with George Russell carrying out testing duties on behalf of Mercedes. Russell was the quicker of the two, putting in a 1:27.47 on the soft tire compound, completing 127 laps in the process. Lawson's best time was 1:22.1126, with 104 laps of Monza circuit completed. While Red Bull and Mercedes return home after Tuesday, Lawson will stay on at Monza as VCarb carries out a day of Pirelli testing on Wednesday. The Kiwi driver being given plenty of opportunity to put in the miles, as the prospect of a switch into an F1 cockpit with one of Red Bull's teams remains a possibility. With Sergio Perez's future not assured until the end of the F1 2024 season, Lawson is a leading candidate to be slotted in at either Red Bull or VCarb if a change to the driver lineup at the reigning world champions is made in its push to secure the titles. Separately from the Monza test, Pirelli is also carrying out some testing at Fiorano with Ferrari, as Oliver Behrman works on wet weather tire development behind the wheel of an SF24. The last test took place after the Belgian Grand Prix, with Alpine and Aston Martin carrying out 2 days of work at Spa-Francorchamps with Jack Doohan and Stoffel Van Dorn, respectively. The last 48 hours have been a whirlwind of emotions for McLaren. The team's Monza failure has become a huge talking point, especially in relation to Norris and Piastri's driver status. However, amidst the focus on McLaren's battle with Red Bull, Ferrari have re-emerged as contenders. According to Zach Brown, Fred Vassar's team are a genuine threat in the title battle. Although it seems a long time ago now, Ferrari were Red Bull's closest challengers in the first 6 rounds. The Italian outfit were capable of matching the defending champions, putting themselves within touching distance in the standings after Leclerc's Monaco win. Unfortunately for the Italian outfit, their Spanish GP upgrade package did not work as expected. The parts intended to increase the SF24's downforce actually worsened performance, putting the car outside of the ideal operating window. Ferrari spent months trying to correct this error, with last weekend's Italy updates representing their solution to this problem. At least so far, the Maranello-based team's new package is a clear step forward. Not just in terms of pure performance, but also tire management, which is crucial to challenging the ever-consistent McLaren. Zach Brown is aware of this, identifying the Italian team as an emerging threat. They, Ferrari, gambled with the one-stop strategy and it worked, he told Sky F1. We didn't think it would work. Charles drove superbly, and for us, it's great points. They, Ferrari, were strong all weekend, especially Charles. There are still some races to go. It looks like Ferrari is back in the fight. Everyone is chasing Red Bull, but Ferrari is not far behind us either. For most of the season, 4 teams have been fighting for wins. However, the championship standings have only now started to reflect this. With Red Bull failing to improve the RB20, in combination with Sergio Perez's struggles, the reigning champions are under immense pressure. The other frontrunners are rapidly reducing their advantage in both the drivers' and constructors' standings. McLaren are only 8 points behind, whilst Ferrari's deficit is now just 39 points. Considering the progress being made by the factory in Maranello, they certainly cannot be discounted in the fight for the title. Ferrari now have the same number of wins as McLaren in 2024, despite having far fewer opportunities. Assuming that the Italian team can avoid the operational mistakes that have plagued McLaren, they can put Andrea Stella's squad under even more pressure. Lewis Hamilton was visibly dejected after qualifying in Monza, admitting that pole position escaped him after a series of mistakes. However, his frustration turned into acceptance on Sunday, with the W15 nowhere near fast enough to fight at the front. Despite securing race victories with regularity just over a month ago, Mercedes are concerned they have lost ground to rivals. Much like in Zandvoort, Mercedes began their weekend in Italy with strong pace. The W15 was competitive on both low and high fuel simulations, prompting positive comments from Hamilton after Friday practice. However, even then, the 7-time champion was cautious about jumping to conclusions. Experiencing a drop in performance from Friday to Saturday is not an uncommon experience for Mercedes in 2024. In fairness to the Silver Arrows, their performance became far more consistent before the summer pause. Unfortunately for the team, the W15 declined as the Italian GP weekend progressed, at least relative to their rivals. Speaking post-race, Andrew Shovlin, trackside engineering director, discussed the state of play at Mercedes. "We didn't have the pace to be able to both manage the tires and keep up with our competitors ahead. It looks like we've lost some pace relative to our rivals since the summer break. We will go away and investigate why that is and what we need to do to put in a more competitive showing in Baku." Looking ahead to the next sequence of races, the Brackley-based team should perform slightly better. The Monza circuit does not play to the W15's strengths, something which was anticipated some time ago. Then again, Italy was not supposed to be a strong track for McLaren on paper either, and they were the strongest force. Recent upgrades from Ferrari and McLaren have given Mercedes somewhat of a headache. The factory in Brackley will need to respond with upgrades of their own to keep up, although they can still be satisfied with their general progress in 2024. Unlike the front-running teams, the German constructor is not in contention for either championship this season. Instead, Mercedes will focus on maximizing results this year and establishing a good platform to fight at the front throughout next season. That's it for today's video. I'll see you around.